Hey, good evening, everybody. Hope you're having a good Saturday. This is a little bit of that stock footage from that trip out to Nashville back in June. And we can see a little bit of tropical towering cumulus out there to the northwest of the city. A very beautiful view there. So let's head into tonight's weather. As you can see, we've got some smoke moving through the northern plains. This cloud that you see right here from eastern Dakotas into Minnesota and Iowa, that's smoke originating from wildfires out to the west. We're talking anywhere from British Columbia, where we still see some smoke underneath this cirrostratus cloud, all the way down into California and the Medford, Oregon area. So we've got that going on, and we've also got some dust out in the Gulf of Mexico. So you're probably thinking it's this. Not really. That's sun glint. In fact, if you look at all these swaths from the satellite, there's one. That's just reflection off of the ocean. However, if we switch over to aerosol optical depth, we can actually see that dust, and it's pretty much centered directly in the Gulf of Mexico right there. It's about to head into the Texas coast right there, and we should see the bulk of it moving into Texas tomorrow. So I'm going to be sure to get some drone footage and maybe get a good look at that. Unfortunately, we do have a lot of overcast, so that may kind of interfere a bit. Alrighty, so let's see what else we have lined up. Of course, the surface analysis. Let's switch over to that there. It's a little bit of a mess, but we can pick out those two quasi-stationary fronts from Texas all the way up to the Appalachians. And where things are getting really interesting is up in the Pacific Northwest. We had that heat wave up in this region, and let me just show you some of those temperatures. Yeah, here we go. These are the highs yesterday. So looking at British Columbia right here, Montana, Utah, and Oregon. And what you'll notice is lots of hundreds all the way from the deserts of Oregon down to Nevada and all the way up to Saskatchewan and the Dakotas. So definitely a heat wave up in that area. And we can see 105 right around, I guess that would be Lethbridge out in that area. Calgary, which is located right there. Actually, let's see. Somewhere in there is Calgary. In fact, that's probably it right there. I think that's the official temperature there was 36.4 Celsius, which is let's see, 80. That's about 97 Fahrenheit, and that was an all-time record high for that area. That broke a record set in 1919. And tied again in 1933. And then, of course, down in Washington there, temperatures all the way up to 102 in some areas. Okay, yeah, look at that, 109 there, just to the east of Caldwell. All right, switch over to the current map, and you can see that cold front pushing into the area. This is a cold air mass from the North Pacific moving inland. And we can also see that on satellite. Let's switch things and take a look up in that region. You can see a lot of stratocumulus and altocumulus between the Cascades and the coastal region right there. This is all moved onshore, very strong westerly flow moving into the area. And then on the other side of the Cascades, there's downslope flow, so there's a little bit of adiabatic warming. Temperature still a little bit on the lukewarm side there, but definitely some dry air in that region. And with that strong westerly flow, that's helping to kick up those wildfires. And I think I've got a loop here. Let me see if I can bring that up here. Yeah, there it is. There's the current visible loop. And one thing that's very noticeable is this fire here near Mount Shasta. You can see as the winds start picking up during the day, it really starts putting out a pretty good plume there. And there's all that stratocumulus all the way up through the valleys around Portland and Seattle. Elsewhere around the country, in Texas, we've got clouds. Now, one thing that's good to do if you're forecasting is to run that back earlier in the day. And this kind of gets rid of some of the convection and kind of lets you look at the air masses themselves. And we use cloud recognition to kind of see what's going on. So what we see is a lot of cirriform clouds throughout much of Texas, and there's a few convective elements breaking through. A little bit of high-based convection right there around Uvalde and a few cells around Houston. And then once the heating gets going later in the morning, we can kind of see a few outflow boundaries start to firm up. There's one right there. We can also see the sea breeze moving in. So things becoming very active across southeast Texas, very uncapped air masses, so we're getting literally hundreds of cells going up. And, of course, north of the outflow boundaries, even that air mass gets going too, so widespread thunderstorms across Texas. In the southeast, kind of a similar picture there, but they've had northwesterly flow move in, a little bit of a cold front, and I'm not too sure how far south that's made it. Let me take a look at the surface map. I'm looking down here in the Gulf Coast region, and, well, the winds are still out of the south, so looks like it hasn't moved too far. That's probably the front right there. And let's see what things look like earlier today. Okay, going to roll that. Yeah, there we go. You can see the northwesterly flow in that region. This looks like the front pushing south, and then by evening, a couple of turkey towers. There's one right there south of Thomasville, Alabama. And you can see that puts out an anvil right there, and that cell does not hang on at all. So it just puts out a little updraft for about 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and then it's gone, just sheared right out. Okay, we've already checked out the northwest, and yeah, that's everybody. That's all the frames I have loaded. I can probably pull up Arizona, since there's some stuff going on out there. SPC has been watching that much of today, and this is some of that monsoon storm activity. And let's run that back earlier in the day. Yeah, most of this gets going along the Mogollon Rim, all the way up to the Grand Canyon. That's a very potent area for storm formation during the warm season. And those cells get going. We can see there's a northeast to southwest flow, so they're moving off the rim into the lower valleys around Prescott, Kingman, and the Grand Canyon area. And some of these cells are pretty strong. Okay, let's go to the upper level charts and check out what's going on. This kind of shows what is driving the pattern. So the polar front jet still up to the north in Canada there. Bit of a trough across the Great Lakes. There's a trough right there extending all the way down into the Panhandles, kind of a tropical upper got a tongue twister here, tropical upper tropospheric trough. So that's what we call a TUT. So yeah, this is definitely a rational use of acronyms, so we don't have that tongue twister going. And then we've got the subtropical high helping to bake things over the Great Basin area. So that's the pattern. That's the line type that we use for a ridge. Kind of a jagged line right there. And embedded in that ridge are some shortwave ridges. These are much smaller scale, so you can see a big difference between the scale of this and the scale of that. And obviously this is going to be moving a little faster, while this one will be kind of stationary. So different time and spatial scales at work on this chart. And with the cold air coming onshore, upper low off the coast of Washington, and probably a couple of troughs rotating through that low. So a change up there, and we're going to see that unfold into the rest of the U.S. next week. 500 millibar pattern showing the subtropical high. Looks like that's centered right over northeastern Utah. So it looks like that high is moving a little bit to the northeast, and looks like more hot weather there for the Dakotas. And then just a quick peek at the moisture. 850 millibar chart showing dew points right around 60 degrees across much Texas, and just kind of a light to moderate flow from the south. And then up to the north we can see a 850 front coming in from Oklahoma and Texas right there. So with that front and the southerly flow, tropical air, and the uncapped air mass, that means numerous thunderstorms. So probably not much of a change. Over the next couple days, consistency will be a good technique to use there. The thickness chart looks like this. Very strong polar front low up there in the western Hudson Bay region. And here we've got another low. So you may wonder, what's the difference between low A and low B? Well, they're defined by their relationship to the thickness gradient. So the thickness gradient runs right through this area here. But you'll notice that this low is kind of away from the gradient, kind of on the cold side. So this makes this an occluded low. It's detached from the temperature gradient, and it doesn't have that thermal access to that baroclinic instability down to the south. However, this low definitely does. So this is the active polar front low, and then this up here is the occlusion. So we put the fronts mostly around those active lows like that. And let's see, if down on the tail end, yeah, there's another low down there in northern Idaho. And that gives us kind of a wave along the front right there. So right there, strong likelihood for development of a low pressure area. And probably when that descends on the lee side of the Rockies out in this area, Montana, that could be an area where we would want to watch for cyclone formation. Looks like the monsoon is kind of subsided, maybe kind of folded into this these pressure falls up to the north. Still got that southerly gradient bringing up the moisture from Mexico. And elsewhere across the U.S., very hard to find that front in Georgia. You can see a very weak thermal gradient right there. So we really want to use the surface chart to place that front, but it's going to be right in that area there. And then the Bermuda High just kind of influencing everything else across the eastern half of the U.S. The precipitable water, this shows the water content throughout a column in the atmosphere, and we can see a very humid pattern across East Texas and Louisiana. Over 2 inches of precipitable water, so no wonder with that and the uncapped air mass, no wonder we've got numerous cells developing. And we can see a little nose of that precipitable water into the deserts of Arizona and California, and that's helping to generate some of the showers in that area there. So this is kind of like a little moisture axis feeding up towards those storms coming off the Mogollon Rim. And then up in Canada, looks like a reinforcing shot of cold air coming south. And that's actually that's that frontal system that we picked out on that other chart. And then the occlusion kind of going up north like that, and there's the occluded low. So this is basically an Alberta clipper in the works, and that should be even further south tomorrow. And I remember a couple days ago we were looking at that moisture return coming up from Texas and interacting with that front coming south. So we're going to expect to see severe chances go up in the Midwest and the northern plains. All right, a quick look at soundings. Let's see if the evening soundings are in. And we've got the Fort Worth sounding taken about an hour and a half ago. So yeah, it's very uncapped, all the way up to about 12 to 14,000 feet. We pick up a little bit of a subsidence inversion up there in the mid-levels, and with that subsidence inversion, you're going to tend to see a lot of altocumulus clouds. Like if you look at the cloud chart, mid-cloud 9, chaotic sky. This is a very good pattern for that when we have lots of low-level moisture and mid-level subsidence inversion, so lots of altocumulus possible. And then above that, some dry air. So if there's a way to get that to the surface, that'll help reinforce the downdrafts. pick another sounding. Let's look at Atlanta. So we know that we've got northwesterly flow moving in that area, a little bit of cold, I wouldn't say cold, but cool, dry advection filtering into the area. Don't have the latest sounding yet, but we can probably look at this morning's. Okay, so there's the morning sounding for Atlanta, and the flow is turning more towards the northwest about 12 hours ago there, so a little bit of shallow cold air advection going on in that region. Maybe a very faint frontal inversion there. So, yeah, it's not really picking up the front too well, but we can get an idea of the instability, and the thermal profile looks conditionally unstable there in Atlanta. A little bit on the stable side, I guess I would say. So the activity, it's not going to be very widespread with this kind of sounding here. Okay, let's move into the forecast. I think it's about that time. So a lot of air mass storms going on. In Texas, we're kind of getting out of that northwesterly flow pattern, and so if we run the animation for tonight, midnight, 3 a.m., really not much going on. You can see the cells are moving out of the southwest. So this is going to kind of return us to more of a diurnal pattern for initiation. Looks like a little bit of dynamics acting on the San Antonio area around dawn. So it's probably a little bit of a shortwave coming out, and we end up with a little bit of cluster of cells by about early midday. Let's take a look at the hemispheric pattern. This is the upper level 500 millibar chart, showing that ridging, keeping things very warm across the Rockies and western U.S. This is that low there in the northwest trying to make an assault into Seattle and Vancouver. So that's going to move over the top of that ridge there. And let's see, got that little tut low in Texas around the panhandles, starting to move north into Kansas and Missouri there. The ridging holds in place over the Rockies going into midweek. So it looks like it's going to stay warm in that area. Increased possibility of showers in the Midwest with this low moving across the Midwest. Looks like a couple of weak troughs moving. Looks like another similar type of trough building across Texas next weekend, so precip chances will be going up once again. And this northwesterly flow will help advect drier, cooler air in the mid-levels. And that's important because if we look at the sounding, 500 millibars is right there. And if we're bringing in northwesterly flow, the air mass origin is Canada, and it's a little bit drier, that means we're going to have probably some increased lapse rates and drier air aloft, which is good for decape. And that means better outflow pool generation, and that can increase your storm coverage for sure. Also, the advection of cool air in the upper levels that will help erode the cap to a certain extent. So we'll go ahead and put it together. Let's look at the forecast. Let me just take a quick look at chat. I've been kind of going on autopilot here. And we've got Carl Berghoff checking in and Shirley Keast. Fun with Tech. Shirley reporting sunny skies in the UP of Michigan. Carl Berghoff reporting smoky skies, mostly clear in his area. Mike R. out there on the west coast. Alexi and Alexander Woods. Okay, so we have, guess we're getting some viewers up in the northeast. I'll try to pull up one frame for you. It really is hard to cover multiple areas. That's kind of been a problem. So we're not always going to be able to cover all areas of the country, but, we'll see what we can do here. Okay, northeast U.S. coming up, light and variable. The influence is mostly the Bermuda High offshore. So that extends pretty much all through here. That's all the Bermuda High That's all the influence and coverage right there. Now, embedded in that, yeah, there are a couple of very weak fronts. There's that one over the southeast U.S., so it's probably turned the flow a little bit to the northeast across New York and Pennsylvania, but otherwise this is a very stagnant weather pattern. And then looking at the satellite, there we go. Run that back earlier today. We've got a weather system moving off the east coast right there. Yeah, that's produced some showers and thunderstorms in that area. And this is all anvil from that stuff. And then back in behind it looks kind of just moderately unstable. And that's mostly a lot of tropical air in that region. And then embedded in that, we can see a couple of outflow boundaries. There's one from, I guess that'd be around Altoona out towards northern New Jersey. So that's a focus for thunderstorms right there. Looks a little bit capped. So that's helping to suppress activity along that boundary. Some of the better convection looks like it's further off to the east. And that closes that out. Let's see what the dew points look like in that area. Pretty moist. We got some 74 dew points there in New York, and that's actually higher than Dallas-Fort Worth right now, and considerably higher than San Antonio. So yeah, they do get a lot of that sultry air up there in the northeast also. The 70s cover this entire region right here, so that would explain probably why we didn't see much development in Pennsylvania in spite of that outflow boundary in that region. So the better moisture lurking out along the east coast there. Okay, let's put together the forecast. Run this back and put the time up there. This will show you what date we're looking at right there. Okay, we'll run this forward through tomorrow. Looks like a stagnant weather pattern for Texas. Those very high precipitable waters moving north into Oklahoma and Arkansas, so chances of rain should go up in that area. The Midwest dominated by this broad high pressure region right there, and then off the east coast, this is all the Bermuda High right there. So yeah, it looks like there's the front right there. There we go. We finally got enough data for placement. So yeah, there it is right there. That's the focus for storms. And that's being driven by this high over the Midwest right there, bringing some light northwest flow down into that region. And then we've got that other system coming out of Montana. There it is right there. And let's run this forward through Monday and Tuesday. You can see the moisture surging northward into Kansas and Missouri. So chances of rain should be going up in that area. And then up to the north, cold front coming southward. So this is where things will start getting interesting around midweek, possibly as early as Monday or Tuesday. And things come together, and looks like rain chances really go up there for Wednesday in Illinois. Still got a lot of tropical air coming into Texas, so it looks like rain chances should continue. And let's see, what's the next big change? Probably be round 2 here. Yeah, this is more cold air coming in around the 20th and 21st. Here's a good reinforcing shot right there. This is around, yeah, 20th, 21st. And that spreads all the way into the southern plains. Rain chances will be going up once again for Texas around the 22nd, 23rd, and then that should spread eastward into the rest of the eastern U.S. going into later that week. All right, so it does look definitely pretty active for August. I know there's been a lot of years where August just has a big ridge just parked across the southwest U.S., and this is not one of them. This is pretty active, so I think probably this upcoming week we should have some things to look at. Okay, let's see. That's probably about all I got for tonight. Appreciate you all checking in. So I'll get back to my weekend activities here, and hopefully y'all have a good evening. Take care, and we will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.